What's up, guys? It's Drac. This is a monster blaster that just showed up, and it's pretty intense. It's a bolt action, magazine fed, shell ejecting sniper rifle, and yes, that is a lot of words to describe a single blaster, but it is doing all of those things. It comes to us directly from Shellington blasters, which is in the rifle itself, kind of embossed into the 3D printing, but interestingly enough, it's also lasered onto the plunger tube, which is visible on this side. And that's just super interesting because the only person I know anodizing and lasering plunger tubes out there is Roboman Automation. Now, I'm not going to say that that's the collaboration in the works, but I am fascinated to see that level of polish on a blaster that's, clearly moving out of its beta stage. I don't know if it's fully out of beta. I know there was a closed beta. I know they're now in open beta, but this one is mine. It was not built by me. It was sent directly for the purposes of this review by Shellington blasters to me. We're using the same sort of magazines that I believe the Flypoint uses, and the same style of shells. So these shells say on them 7.7, and of course each shell 3D printed is loaded with one of these kind of a knockoffy worker dart things. I think that just might be the current generation of worker darts, but we're gonna go ahead and put that back in here. Based on the apertures here, it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I feel like this holds more than that. Let's just find out. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is a 7-round magazine, and it's just blocky. I mean, I'm used to Deagle mags too, but these are humongous. By the time you get used to something like Talons or Katana mags, and you're used to your half darts just being loose in the magazine, once you add a layer of insulation to them, they get pretty chunky. But they were kind enough to send over 3 magazines. I've got 2 in here so that I can show you what reloads look like. But for the purposes of the video, let's go ahead and pop this up. So there's a lock down here where the bolt is going to close, bolt open, bolt closed, and then back is going to actually prime the blaster and open up all of the space in here for us to throw our magazine in. Now, the magazine releases a button right here on the blaster, super easy to access, and while it's not spring assisted, gravity is plenty due to how heavy the magazines are. If you look into the breech itself, you can see that the majority of the barrel is well, I guess in the closed beta, the majority of the barrel was faux barrel, but this appears to be aluminum, almost caliburn barreling. It stops here on the muzzle and it goes all the way up until about here or so, where there's a large kind of chambering area that this bolt up here is going to grab the shell and push into position. So there's a lot going on internally there that might be interesting or of note. Handle is incredibly comfortable. Grip is good. Thumb stock is good. Stock is interesting because in all of them I've seen this sort of like, instead of just being butted up against directly, there's this sort of sci-fi-esque kind of wobble area here. And it makes me wonder if the stock is not supposed to be adjustable, but at least in my package, there was no instruction manual. So I've watched a couple of videos. Everybody seems to keep their stock like this. If that's not making a ton of sense, you can see there that it's got this connective tissue of 3 3D printed pieces. Now, when I choke up on it, it's not like it's breaking. It's actually a very solid blaster, and it's got good lateral torsion in that there's no side-to-side creak, which if you have like an older model of Caliburn, might be something you're more familiar with. But we're gonna go ahead, throw the magazine into position, just make sure that it's seated correctly, and then you push forward, grabbing a shell, pushing that shell up into this ramp here, and then you're in, and then mine has like a little click just to make sure that you're absolutely seated right, and then you snap down, and you should be good to go. So firing, it's actually quite the potent blaster. It's got plenty of oomph in it. This entire priming bar here is steel. So it's reinforced on your prime, and then there's a bolt going through it that connects to the disc that sits in front of the plunger tube so that when you come up and you prime back, you're not like twisting the blaster, or you don't have to worry about this breaking off. It's very, very solid. Yet another thing that makes me wonder, like, if Shellington is now working with a machine shop to custom make some of these parts. But then you noted that the shell ejected, which is just such a cool effect. Then we go down, make sure that we click into place, and in. And clearly we weren't seated correctly. All right, so a couple of technical difficulties there. It's just sometimes these don't seat correctly, and I have to be really careful. You can almost feel it, you know, when you have a good shell insert and seat, because it won't drop down as comfortably. The bolt will have to be like pushed into place, and that's just a hiccup on my personal model. It seems like every one of these has like its own kind of quirk to it. And again, it's still kind of in beta, but the overall performance of it when it is like firing on all cylinders is great. The shell ejection is so cool. There's something so visceral about it. So let's see here. So that felt good. That was a good chambering and a fine shot. Oh man, it's so neat. And we get so focused on performance blasters, especially on this channel. I know that like there's plenty of good channels focusing exclusively on fun blasters. There's channels focusing on stock blasters. And in my kind of quest to focus on everything, there's an inherent bias towards things that work really well. I like really functional, really good machinery. Like my background lends itself very well to things that mesh properly. But it's important to take a step back constantly and just remember that like it is a toy channel. These are toys. There's a special kind of joy that comes from not necessarily, you know, winning the round or having the most efficient 225 FPS machine and just ratcheting out shells from your mag-fed rifle. It looks like we got 2 left. Let's put those through. I think I've broken it in at this point because now I'm getting, yeah, that's fine. We could drop that out, grab that, slam that home, in, down, and oh, it's so cool. I really dig how much work went into giving this a very sleek aesthetic. I mean, it's certainly sci-fi meets real steel, and the shell ejecting, I mean, this is probably the best of the bunch. There's a default in a lot of circumstances to making the shell ejection blasters either tube fed or, you know, lever action, specifically because that's kind of how they tend to work in real steel world. Obviously, like in real steel world, everything ejects shells, but that's neither here nor there. I really dig this one. It's just got a very sleek kind of ergo to it, lots of pick rail. You've got pseudo M-lock. It's very comfortable. I think that, you know, with any less red on this, it would be a very dangerous silhouette, obviously, but for any sort of closed park, field, or anything where you're comfortable with the amount of orange/neon is on it, and I think that this would be fine most places. This is a really cool way to change up your loadout, and I think that as a personal like challenge almost, I would love to run this. But before I decide completely, we got to take it outside and put it over the chronograph, see what kind of numbers it is doing. All right, so we're out here with the Shellington blaster, and I just cannot overexpress. It's almost got like an R301 kind of vibe to it. It's a really, really sleek shell, even with the sort of oversized magazines. Now, while the print quality leaves a little bit to be desired, it's actually significantly better than it has been in the past. Jinx, you're in the worst place possible, sweetheart. But let's go ahead and I guess tilt this way, put a few over the chronograph, I think. Yep, it's not primed right now, so we'll go ahead, prime back, forward, and down. Jinx is out of the way, so 220, and that's what I'm saying here. Like, this is not an underpowered blaster, right? Let's get the thumbnail right here. So cool, so cool. I do think that now that I've broken it in, it's going to perform very, very smoothly. So that's 1-2-20, 1-2-22, 1-2-16. Got me with the ricochet, and then 1-2-17. So pretty confidently can say that that's how this one's going to perform. Let's throw our target out just a wee bit. Try and get it about 60 feet out here, which should also bring it a little higher up just because it's been drooping on me a little. And even with the bounce, I think that we'll be okay. No optics on it, although it does have a full pick rail up top that you could add something to. Too high. Straight shooter, I'm pretty close. I think I got one left in this. There we go, we clipped it on that one. So overall, pretty solid. You can see once you see black, you know that you can drop your magazine, come back, grab another one. Pretty cool. That's another hit. Nice. You know, this is possibly a competitive worthy blaster with all of the fun, with all of the gimmicks. Obviously, there's nowhere that you could take something this high FPS to like HVZ with, but a really cool blaster. So the price on this, like I said, $200. That's about putting it in where you should be paying for like a full primary style category. And given everything that's going into it, how custom the hardware kit, how tight everything's put together, which was part of what makes it feel really solid, I think that you're getting what you pay for there. I think that there are certainly more expensive blasters that focus on other features, be it pump action, print quality, what have you. But at $200, you're getting a pretty good deal on a blaster from its manufacturer, from its designer, directly supporting the creator, that also has a very unique play profile with the shells and the magazines and the bolt. Just a really, really cool one. We got one more magazine, and just because I can't stop, I'm gonna go ahead and exhaust this one downrange, with the goal being to cycle through the bolt as quickly as I can, just because I wanna see how reliable it'll be under duress. So let's begin here. Oh, and there we go. I managed to get that same sort of gimmick that I was talking about before, where now I'm not closing all the way, which tells me that I'm not closing all the way and that I should be careful with how this one is seated. And I think it might be an issue with the shells, not the blaster itself. I think that all the shells have different printing ribs on them, and occasionally if one of those gets stuck, the shell doesn't seat all the way. And if the shell doesn't seat all the way, then obviously it's not gonna push into the breech perfectly. So once we fixed it, it's fine. So I guess, yeah, just a little TLC goes a long way with the Shellington blasters. So that's it. That's a pretty honest look at the Shellington blasters Wrenfield. Highly recommend it. Play pattern that just nothing else is doing, and a really good exhibition for what Shellington blasters does best, which is, you know, shells. But a really, really, really cool product. Huge thank you for printing not only the blaster, but also the magazines in the classic Drac and red colors. I think that my only major gripe is that the stock is a little warbly, and you know, maybe that's by design. Maybe there's something that I'm missing in the stock, and I'm willing to acknowledge that. But the rest of the blaster is rock solid. The performance is rock solid. The price is very fair. It's hard to complain about anything on this guy, and it is a ton of fun. So thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to check them out down in the description box below. They got a website where you can check out, I think this is either production or still the open beta, but a really cool product, a creator that's doing a lot of awesome stuff in the hobby, and something well worth checking out, in my opinion. Thank you for watching, and as always, much love. Blast on, Drac out.